What's up everyone, it's Zoko here bringing you a monster of a build for New World, usable for any type of content really, but this really shines in PvP. This was something that did well in both closed and open beta. Even if some tweaks are made at launch, this will likely hold up for some time. First, I'm going to go over the build itself and finish off the video with some strategies you can use to help run it. If you find this helpful and you want to see some more, be sure to leave a comment on what build you would like to see from me next. And if you want more builds and guides for this game, consider subscribing. I also do stream on Twitch, so stop by over there if you get a chance and say hi. Okay, so this build is insane. Definitely something that will be usable in 1vx situations. The weapon combo we are using is the Great Axe and Hatchet. Starting off the Great Axe tree on the Reaper branch, we will be getting the active skill Reap along with the passive Greed. Reap is a nice skill when someone is trying to get away from you. Once you get good at aiming, this gets very useful. I like this whole skill line, to be honest. Moving down, we are going to get the active skill Charge. This is our gap closer. Critical gains, this is going to heal us after we land a critical strike. The Collector will extend our Reap skill to 8 meters. And Death's Embrace is going to penetrate 10% more armor on enemies below 50% HP. Next here, we are only picking up Frustration. My wife is a bit OP with this passive, trust me. Once you block an attack, you gain 15% damage for 10 seconds. It's pretty awesome. Now we pick up Keen Edge for 10% more critical damage. Hunger will heal you for 30% of the damage done by Reap. And then Critical Condition is going to allow us to land critical strikes more often on enemies below 30% HP. Next is Feed, which just heals us outright for hitting enemies below 30% HP. And remember, we are also healing ourselves for any critical shot that we land, so this is where this really starts to stack up. Fatal Attraction adds a spin attack to Reap at the end. To be honest, I find this one kind of optional. If you want to use something else in place of this, I don't really see any issue here. Something like Revenge in the tree towards the end might be a nice replacement. The issue I was finding with this was it wasn't landing consistently just because I hit my Reap shot. And if it misses, it really just allows people to gain that ground back that you pulled them in from. So that was my issue there. And then the most important skill of this entire tree is Bloodlust. This passive increases your speed by 30% and damage by 15% if you're looking at an enemy within 15 meters. It is bananas. All right, moving on to the Mauler tree. This I find is a fairly standard setup for this tree. First up is going to be your heavy pull, which any of your heavy attacks is going to pull enemies closer to you. Enduring Strike adds grit to your heavy attack swings. Grit is important because it's a stagger resistance. It helps you from becoming interrupted while attacking. Super important. It also does 20% damage reduction while your heavy attack grit is active, so that's obviously crucial. Over here, Gravity. This is gonna, the enemies that you pull with your CC abilities in this tree with your Gravity pull, it's gonna hold them still for 30% longer, so that's super, super important, and improving the effectiveness of your CC ability. Gravity Weld. This is, you throw, it's an active skill that you use to throw. Your axe can go up to 10 meters, sucks everybody into this like massive vortex bubble that you create. Super, super effective. It can have a bit of a learning curve. It can get like hit on some rocks and stuff, and you just kind of know like what it's going to get hit on. Practice makes perfect. You'll get better as you use it. Crowded Well increases the burst damage by 10% for each foe caught in the vortex, so that's super, super good. Very, very important if you're fighting multiple enemies at the same time. Again, learning how to use this effectively is going to be paramount to PvP. And then Unyielding, any allies that you're that are helping you are going to gain 10% Fortify while standing in your Gravity Well. So Fortify increases your, reduces the damage that you're taking. So this is like a defense buff for any of your boys. Now we move on to the Hatchet. Not sure how many people played the preview last year, but since then the Hatchet has actually been nerfed, believe it or not. And despite that nerf, this thing is still insanely good. So let's start out with the big one. Pretty much the core skill of any Hatchet user, Berserk. This increases all active damage by 20% for 12 seconds. You can add a taunt gem to it for PvE purposes, but I feel most people are utilizing this or just trying to find someone's face to stick their axe into. Now we are getting both passives in the first tier, and Rage Strikes increases light and heavy attacks by 20% to targets below 30% HP. And Accumulated Power will give empower to after you land 3 light attacks. That increases damage by 30% for 3 seconds. Moving on down, we have the active skill Feral Rush. This is one of the gap closers for this weapon. Definitely not the best gap closer if you have to pick one. The Great Axe's charge will still be better, but hey, it'll do the trick at a pinch. Next we have On the Hunt, which increases the speed while you're in Berserk by 20%. This I consider a better gap closer, but you would probably prefer to save the skill until you're in the thick of things because of some other benefits you get later on. Relentless Fury grants Empower for landing a heavy attack. Now we got Dispatch, which increases damage done to targets below 30% HP. This is probably one of my favorite skills. Against all odds, it increases the base damage by 10% for every enemy within 5 meters of the player. Berserking Refresh, while Berserk is active, gain a portion of your health back every 4 seconds to a max of 30% HP. This is a very clutch part of the skill for sure. Now we have Crippling Strikes, which roots people if you hit them in the back with Feral Rush. It's a great way to punish anyone trying to run. Berserking Purge will remove all crowd control effects from you. Definitely one reason to save your Berserker skill for those tough moments. Fortifying Strikes will grant Fortify, shockingly, by hitting an enemy with 3 light attacks. So remember, we have that other skill that gives us Empower for 3 light attacks, and now this. Fortify is going to grant damage absorption of 15% for 3 seconds. Frenzied Purge will remove any damage over time effects from you when you hit someone while you have less than 30% HP. Uninterruptible Berserk makes your attack while in Berserk mode unable to be stopped. And finally, the big clutch, Defy Death. If you drop to 0 HP, this grants immortality for 3 seconds. This can buy you enough time to get that kill or even use a potion to make it out of the situation alive. But keep in mind you have a 75-second cooldown before it can be used again. So it's extremely important to note that. Moving on to the Throwing Tree. We are just going to pick up Aimed Throw for the first one, which instead of blocking allows us to use a ranged attack in its place. Just use right click and let her rip. Now we have the Social Distancing active skill, which I no shit spit out my beer when I saw that they named it this. This is your gap creator. If you're trying to buy some time in a potion cooldown, or maybe you want Berserker to get active again, or you just want to get the hell out of dodge, this throws your axe while you dodge backwards. If you hit the target, you slow them to 15% speed for 3 seconds. Quick Power, your player movement is increased to 30% for 3 seconds if your ability hits the target, and then Stay Back, the slow movement speed that affects the enemy when you hit them, is increased to 25%, and then 4 seconds instead of 3 seconds. So these two additions allow you to be able to escape somebody that has that Bloodlust ability from the Great Axe tree. So that's super important to understand, that you're actually going to be able to outrun somebody that has that passive. You don't have a lot of options when trying to outrun somebody with that, so it's important to be able to use that. Maybe you can get out of the range where Bloodlust actually is active, or maybe you just buy enough time to be able to relaunch an offensive attack. So, you do have a couple options. It's not many, but they are there. As for the attributes and gear, I'm not going to name any specific pieces of gear yet, but I would focus on items that maybe add a damage over time effect, maybe something that leeches health. Anything that complements any skills you're already using should be attractive to get, and of course your main attributes of strength and constitution. I would try to stay in the medium weight category. This will give you a 10% increase in damage and add 10% to your crowd control effects. And being that we used quite a bit of those with this build, it is important that we add to those as much as possible. For attributes, I think something like 2/3 of your attributes go into strength and the other third go into constitution. This will help a lot with your survivability. I think it's important to get the constitution perk of adding the same amount of armor you have to your health. That's a really nice one to get. I think that should be kind of the goal for the amount of constitution you're aiming to have. Any attributes from your gear are also added to the sheet here, so picking the right pieces of gear could be extremely important when it comes to getting some extra perks within the attribute tree. Now, when using this build, I think opening with Gravity Well is very important. This allows you to get a few extra shots in on someone that is going to run. I mean, maybe they end up running sooner, but that's just less damage to you, right? If you get into a really tight spot, whether that is low HP, facing multiple enemies, or whatever, I think you should probably switch to the Hatchet, especially if you're a low HP. You want to pop Berserk and start getting that health back. In a 1vx, you want to prioritize any healers you see. After that, any range enemies that are doing chip damage on you from afar. These people are generally a bit squishier, kind of along the same lines as healers, but, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up whether they're going to have, like, the light build or a medium build. It's tough to say, but it's really important you get them out of the situation as fast as possible. If you are able to get rid of both healers and ranged opponents and you are still alive, then chances are you can take on whatever melee opponent is failing their teammates so miserably. Be sure to leave a like on the video, and again, consider checking me out on Twitch. See you in a tournament.